My story begins when I was about 9 to 10 years old, and my family was moving from Tennessee to Texas because of economic problems. And during that, my family lost their home. My dad and my brother stayed in Texas because of jobs, and my mom and I moved to Tennessee, and we moved in with a family member. In this home, I was sexually abused. And during that time, my mom, she was working night shifts, so I would spend most of my time alone. And when I would go to school, it was really hard to make friends because I was a new student. And I remember people would bully me because I did not dress like them. I did not do my hair like them. And I had more leg hair than the boys in my class. And I remember just feeling shame and humiliated. And then when I would go home, I felt scared, not having my parents around. And then came around middle school, and I was transitioning to 5th grade. And here I made a mental note that I did not want to be bullied again. And so when I entered that middle school, I was determined to be the bully. And I remember going into the girls' restrooms and pushing girls around. And I remember I would just pick on people. And I just felt that satisfaction. When I entered 6th grade, it's when I started to change. I was becoming a preteen. And so, I really couldn't control much of the anger I carried inside. I carried anger because I did not have a normal life. And I remember one time I was sitting in my science class and I just wanted attention. I wanted somebody to hear me. And I remember I got a scissor from the little cubby my teacher kept. And I got a scissor, and I started to carve my arm. And there, that teacher, she yelled at me, and she told me to leave and to go to the counselor's office. And once again, I felt humiliated because that was not the attention I wanted. And so when I left that room, I slapped the door behind me. And I was walking towards the counselor's office. I was halfway there when I saw my hero. And I call him my hero because when he saw me, he immediately stopped me. And he told me, he's like, let's sit down, let's have a chat. And there, he was the first person to ask me, what's wrong? How can I help you? And I remember I didn't tell him anything that was wrong. I just looked at him and listened to him. And I remember he touched my arm and he told me, don't do this ever again. And then every day, as I got off my bus, he would always smile at me, always ask me how my parents were doing. And this bond began with me and him. And so fast forward to my freshman year, I felt better, and I was determined to be the best. I didn't want to be the mean person again. If you ask my peers from middle school who was Cicela, they would always tell you, oh, she was mean, she was a bully. And so my freshman year, I had my fresh start. I had a fresh start to not be the one being picked on, the one not bullying. I wanted to be the best. So I did. And I was one of the top students of my class. I was involved in pretty much everything. And then when I came across a program from Lipscomb called Pioneros, it caught my eye because it's a scholarship program for students who want to become teachers and are minorities. And I saw that as a hope. I saw that as my chance. So I worked really hard. And I remember just this aspiration I had to become a teacher. I wanted to be that hero that person was back in middle school. So I worked really hard. Fast forward to senior year, and I'm class president of my senior class. And my senior year of high school, I had so many goals. You know, this is the year I'm going to get into my dream school. I'm going to do everything, all the activities with my senior class. But in December of my senior year, I decided to tell my parents what had happened to me back in my childhood. And I remember the night I told them. I remember seeing their faces. But one thing I always will thank God is because my parents are so loving. Because my dad told me that nothing would ever change between us. And he told me he would always support me in every decision I would make. So I moved on. But in February, I got a knock on my door at 6 a.m. And it was a sheriff. And he served me saying I was being sued for $25,000 for character defamation. And I said, why? Why all this time I kept quiet, and now I finally speak out? I'm being served with this. And that day was the day of my interview for my scholarship. And I was like, what am I going to do? But I had one thing. I was for sure I was going to defend myself to the fullest. So I took that paper to school. And when I got to the school building, the first person who saw me was my principal. You know, I was pretty well known at school. So when he saw my face, he was like, what's wrong? And I just gave him the paper. And I was like, look. And he just looked at it. And with disbelief, he just told me to sit in his office and he would get help. So pretty soon after, I had this team with me from school. All these teachers who cared for me. And they all got me the help. They got me an attorney. They got me to the sexual assault center, a place where I could finally get some help to talk about what had been going on with me for all these years. And I remember I felt distracted. I felt like, how am I going to achieve my dream? How am I going to go? How am I going to graduate from high school? I had to step down from my place as a senior class president because I couldn't even speak in front of my SGA group. It was hard. But then fast forward to March. This is the day I was going to be told if I were going to get my scholarship or not. And that day, God blessed me with that scholarship. And that day, I was like, okay, God, you haven't left me alone. So I'm going to fight. I'm going to continue to fight. And so here I am. I'm at my dream school. And I'm going to continue to be the best because I want to continue to achieve that dream, to become that hero for that student. Because you never know who you're going to come across to. You never know whose life you're going to save. So I want to say thank you to that teacher who's not here today, but I know he knows what he did for me. And I want to tell y'all, never deny a smile to a child. Never, because you never know whose life you're going to save. Thank you.